So, Dr. Hetzel, I don't know if you got my email or not. We did a presentation on, we had a discussion on roadmap. William Lowe,
I
myself,
have
and
a phone call coming in I need to take. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Mitch Raymond had a little discussion on BDNF, and I didn't have a lot of personal experience with it because I learned about it from you about 2 years ago.
What does that stand for?
It stands
for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF. And it starts with miracle growth brain. And
I still don't know what that does, but
I know. Well, it comes into play two ways. Number one, that seems to be the way antidepressants relieve depression by increasing the BDNF, mainly in your prefrontal cortex. Right. Also, exercise will increase BDNF.
Yep. Exercise
that's what helps you recover motor functioning. Now, BDNF is the end of a whole cascade of chemical processes. Other things occur first, and BDNF is actually itself produced by another compound called cyclic AMP response element binding protein, abbreviated CREB, C-R-E-B. So CREB produces BDNF. And
there will be a test.
Anyway, there will be a test, yes.
The problem is that we are each a batch of different chemicals, and they keep coming up with these designer drugs saying, well, this will cure your problem. Yeah, but what if it conflicts with another drug or another problem?
So now I understand why I have the drugs for sadness, but when I found out I could walk and get rid of them, then that's much better for me to do it. It's just with all of the stress from, kids that are having terrible lives for something, three out of four. And it's like, wow, I have to be better. They're all worried about me. I don't want to be lonely. I shouldn't feel lonely. My whole life, I never was. What do I do? How do I fix that? Go find someone? No. Right? I mean, let's be sensible. I just have to get out and walk. Sorry, guys. I'm not stupid. I just don't get it.
Build community. I had to stop Dr. Hetzer before he gave my entire presentation.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Just kidding. He knows a good bit about this, and he's absolutely right. So, T, interestingly enough, one of the things that appears high on a lot of people's list is stress management. I copied I wrote down several lists and I added various things to them. Control stress is number one on one, number 4 on another one, stress management. They all say things like building community, don't isolate yourself. Those are also things that help with BDNF production. But the ones that appear at the top of most lists, and of course, this is I'm not a neuroscientist like Dr. Hetzer is. I'm not a doctor, a medical doctor either. So I got to rely on Dr. Google, common sense, and the things that keep appearing. So, and the fact that some of these things were on websites, like, when I see Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, places like that, then I tend to believe it more than like, well, one of them was actually pretty good. It was on a coffee website. And oddly enough, coffee was one of their top 10. Actually, coffee appeared in several other lists. So, the things that seem to produce BDNF, which Dr. Hetzer calls miracle grow for the brain, which
Mhm.
plays into neuroplasticity, which is something that we all want when we're recovering.
Yeah.
Exercise is a top 1 or 2 on everybody's list. And interestingly enough, they say that high intensity exercise, sometimes abbreviated HIE, if you ever see that, I had to look it up. HIE, anyway, high intensity exercise is one. All strength training, weightlifting, and aerobics, so they're all fairly active exercises. Although in our discussion, William said he did brisk as he could do at the time, being a stroke survivor, did active walking, and he did it outside, which is interesting because a couple of lists say sunshine and fresh air. One of them said get naked in the sun. Of course, you can only do that in your own backyard. So it seems like that the higher intensity exercise seems to help a bunch. Another one that was mentioned quite a lot was fasting. And here's don't isolate, build community, be social, and engage, D. So those were all things that were good. Fasting is has been proven, it's been studied and proven to help with BDNF production. And one of the things that you see when people talk about this, like Mitch, was intermittent fasting. And when I looked it up, it said that 48-hour fast produces, it said intermittent fasting is not equal skipping breakfast. So that's number one. You have to get a little more serious about it. And, I'm not advocating that anybody take up intermittent fasting or start lifting weights or anything. What you'll find in the end is that all the things that we're supposed to do to get better and live a healthy lifestyle play into it. We'll get to some other things. But,
yeah, I think that's a great idea. I've lifted my 42 years of favorite employment. I love lifting. So yeah, I'm going to do that, lift that group. Because there is one that is just where I live. Now I'm understanding they all are strokes. And I didn't even know it existed. So I'll meet some people, which is great.
Well, you can get involved in things. I started going to church, and now I've got a whole bunch of new friends, and I'm involved in different things like the community garden. So,
oh yeah, that helps.
It doesn't just, I've had this issue myself because I tend to work a lot and I live alone and I tend to be isolated. So I've worked on it, and volunteering is another good way. You always meet good people when you volunteer. You go to a Habitat job site, for example. I'm picking on them because I've done a lot of volunteer work with them. Everybody you meet's a good person. They're out there, helping other people, volunteering. So it's back to fasting. It said that a 48-hour fast is was 350% produced 350% more BDNF than intermittent fasting. A lot of people like to eat on a regular schedule, so I'm not advocating any of this stuff. I'm just kind of reporting on if you want to. Basically, what it comes down to is if you want to help your brain out with neuroplasticity and BDNF, you'll do a whole bunch of different things. Let's see what else we got. We talked about control stress and inflammation. I thought that was interesting to lump inflammation with stress. They don't seem to have anything to do with each other. One list when talking about inflammation said avoid processed foods and avoid lots of sugar. On the other hand, dark chocolate was on everybody's list for foods that help produce BDNF. So, like anything, you got to figure out what works for you, and it's a balance. The coffee I mentioned. A high protein diet. Okay, now you get into I'm not a big fan of the whole keto thing, but it seems like the whole keto diet thing plays into BDNF production, because while you don't, on this one list, it says high protein diet, and then it says restrict carbs sometimes, and that ketones increase BDNF. Another one of the lists I saw said to go on a keto diet. I covered fasting. Okay, what are some other foods? All of our favorite foods that are that we like to eat and they're good for us after stroke also work on BDNF. Let's see, dark chocolate, blueberries, extra virgin olive oil, fatty fish, butter. I was surprised at that. And it said the countries, I lumped some references and things I found in with the same subject matter. It said countries that eat fish have less depression. Interesting. And so your gut genome or microbiome definitely plays into producing BDNF and serotonin, which is kind of an aside, but serotonin's your happy chemicals. A lot of things they're finding out more and more and more that your gut controls lots of things in your body and in your brain. So it's important to try and eat right and have a good microbiome. All those healthy healthy I guess they're bacteria and other things in your gut.
Oh, I got a phone. I gotta go, guys.
Okay. What else? Let's see. Green tea, eggs, red grapes, and resveratrol. Resveratrol, everybody started drinking red wine about 15, 20 years ago because resveratrol is good for you. Soy, that was kind of surprising. Turmeric wasn't a real surprise. It came up a couple times. It came up in supplements. It said supplements. I like this list. It said supplements may work. Yeah, well, that's the way to put it, because Dr. Hetler will tell you that they're not tested by the FDA. They don't do studies on supplements.
That's right. They do not have to be shown to be safe or effective.
Right, and since they don't do studies on them, they don't really understand how they might interact with other drugs and medication with drugs, because the supplements are, I guess everything's a drug if it's chemicals.
Does that mean vitamins?
The supplements that were mentioned were omega-3, not surprising since fatty fish was on the list. Magnesium and zinc, our old friends there, they just keep popping up. Magnesium has to do with, I believe I read in this, something like 27 vital chemical processes that go on in your body are magnesium plays into them. Niacin, zinc also, niacin, vitamin B3, kind of expected maybe to see vitamin B12 on there, but it wasn't. And then our old friend curcumin, which is another way of saying turmeric. And even though it was not brought to you, it was brought to you by the coffee company and not the supplement coffee company. They mentioned something called BDNF Essentials. It's a supplement. I looked it up. It's basically one of those pricey things where they put together, I don't remember exactly what was in it, but it was basically a conglomeration of some of these things. You know, they put magnesium, zinc, and turmeric and stuff all together in one pill and charge $1 a piece for them and call it BDNF Essentials. I'm not picking on them. I'm not really picking on the supplement industry, except that a lot of cases you can get some of these specialty things. You're actually better off getting the individual things and putting it together yourself. Except people, hesitant to say lazy. people will take the easy way out. If they can push a button and buy a supplement, then they'll tend to do that rather than do a lot of research and figure out what's in it and get all those separate things. So let's see.
What does it say about coffee again?
They said coffee helps stimulate BDNF production. Yeah. And I think, and it also, it mentioned some kind of coffee supplement. I didn't write it down. There's some stuff in coffee that helps. And I believe it also, it doesn't have to do with the caffeine. I believe you can drink decaffeinated coffee and get the same results as caffeinated coffie. If you're like me,
Is that not working?
well, I never was a big coffee drinker, and well, because if I drank caffeinated coffee, like even before my stroke, give me the shakes. But I drank iced tea and I never had any issues with it. But after my stroke, I had one day I had like 3 big glasses of iced tea at a restaurant here locally, and I don't know. It gave me that caffeine jitters, the whole thing. I thought like I was having a stroke. So I just haven't had any caffeine since. That was about 12, 13 years ago. It's easy enough to drink decaf. I used to drink iced tea at lunch and just switched over to decaf. I can tell you if I buy decaf and it's like 90% decaffeinated instead of 95, I can tell you that I can tell the difference. I guess I'm pretty sensitive to it. So yeah, apparently drinking coffee, actually coffee is supposedly, there are things in coffee that are good for lots of things.
What
So-
good symptom do you, or sorry, which good type do you take? Because I should be doing the same thing, but I'm not fussy yet on decaffeinated. What brand do you use?
Oh, good. Me? I keep both. I just have some. I'm not a big coffee drinker. I don't drink decaf either. If I have company, I have guests, then I'll make some of each and I'll have coffee with them. But other than that, I mean, I haven't had a guest in a couple months, so I haven't had a cup of coffee in 2 or 3 months. So I'm not the one to ask. I mean, my real coffee drinker friends, a lot of them get it at Costco because they have all kinds of good coffees from around the world and they're cheap. But
Okay.
I would think any kind of, I mean, there's so many kinds of coffee. There got to be 1,000 brands of coffee out there.
Hey, Ralph,
Yeah.
does it say anything about like mushroom support on this list that you're speaking of?
Mushroom support. Well, actually, I didn't see you pop in, Angela. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mushroom support. I did not see mushrooms on. I kind of amalgamated a bunch of lists. You know, I'm not somebody who's going to go with one list. Actually, the best list I got was brought to you by a coffee company and it mentioned coffee. That's why we were just talking about coffee. So of course, you know, they're doing like Flint Rehab and Sabo does. You know, you put out good articles about stroke recovery and maybe they'll buy your arm brace or something, same sort of thing. Put out good list on BDNF and tell you coffee, maybe they'll buy your coffee. But so I looked at a half a dozen different lists, Angela, and I did not see anything on mushrooms. Now, of course, I want to know because I grow mushrooms and I actually got 5 mushrooms. Usually you get like 50 or 100 or you get a whole bloom. But for some reason, last week I got 5 mushrooms. So I had a BDNF omelet out of them because I didn't have enough to make soup, and I actually made a frittata. What do you know about mushrooms?
I am not at a point where I feel educated enough to share. I'm still playing guinea pig with myself, but I certainly have done some research at this point, and I really see mushrooms of all variety, but especially like lion's mane, turkey tail, like these specific mushrooms help heal your neuroactivity. It actually helps the growth of neuroplasticity within your body. And I watched this fascinating documentary last night as well, but I'm actually doing some research on psilocybin right now. And maybe whenever I get like fully immersed into this, maybe this is something that we can revisit for sure, because it's kind of fascinating what psilocybin's properties have the ability to do within a traumatic healing scenario within the body. So, and they're starting to have more research that they're doing. Things are starting to lighten up around the laws around this and practicing this within the medical community. So I know that there'll be more information about this as we move along, but there's a lot more people studying it now, which is really cool. Like, I think that's really cool. I don't think there's ever an end all be all. I think you have to figure out like what your body needs and then go from there. I know like there's supplemental support that I use that has been proven for my body and my healing journey to open up my brain big time and allow for that deep neuroactivity to begin to heal and to present in my day-to-day, so.
What would that be?
I've been using ashwagandha, which is really, oh geez, what is it? It's Chinese.
I know what it is, but you should explain it to other people.
Sure. Let me grab the bag really quick so I'm not like
While you're doing that, I'll just say a couple things. You get people who swear by lion's mane mushrooms. They'll come in and say, you have to take lion's mane mushrooms, like it's an edict. And then you get about 50% of people say, I tried them, they did nothing for me. My friend Henry, who had a TBI, pretty much same stroke issues as stroke. He's the one who got me growing shiitake mushrooms. And when he had his TBI, he grew lion's mane mushrooms and ate vast quantities of them, and said he had no results. Now, some of the supplement people tell you you're not getting enough. You have to take a supplement where they possibly, I don't know enough about lion's mane supplements to talk intelligently, but they might pack more in than you can get off the mushrooms. Don't know.
You definitely have to be cautious about how you're using supplemental support. Like Dr. Hetler said, they don't have anybody that monitors or like puts these things through a process of, yes, this is clean, this is safe for your body type of thing, like the FDA does, or any of the other governmental run, agencies. But it's about trial and error. And I know like you can tell pretty quickly whenever you try these supplements that they will work or they will not work for you. I have gone into it with the support of a nutritionist, and I don't do any of this without talking to her first, because she has really become my primary doctor in a way. I mean, I still have a regular medical physician that I see, but I utilize, at this point, I have learned how to utilize food as medicine, and I have seen such an impact. And I'm not saying this is for everybody, not at all, but I think that mushrooms are really worth looking into if you are trying to heal from any kind of medical, physical, emotional trauma. That's all I'm saying.
There's a lot more. Sorry, go ahead.
Ralph, could I ask you, when you say that this person tried whatever type of mushrooms and saw no difference, like what kind of difference would you see? I mean, it's your brain responding and kind of not really lighting up, but it's just more neuroactivity. I mean, neuroactivity is not going to give you a rush like some sort of crazy drug or something.
Well,
No.
it's not a happy chemical thing, and it's not, if something's going to produce more neuroplasticity, you're going to see different results in the exercises and the recovery work you're doing. It's not a matter of feeling; it's a matter of seeing it translate to improvement in terms of walking better. And so, and, you know, in Henry's case, he still is using 2 canes. And he has a lot of issues, same as stroke survivors do. And, you know, I can't really say what they did and didn't do for him, because I kind of got the overview, which was he stopped growing them because they didn't do anything for him. As far as psilocybin goes, I'm not going to name any names because it's illegal in my state I live in. But most of what's going on with psilocybin, in my experience at least, is has to do with more of a trauma and PTSD and things like that, as opposed to increasing neuroplasticity and making for better recoveries. I don't pretend to be an expert on this. There's one guy, I did an interview live in person with a guy named Stanislaw Grof, who was at the University of Maryland. He's now about 94, I believe. He did research on LSD and psilocybin for the CIA at the University of Maryland, and they found both of them to be very effective in terms of treating soldiers with PTSD. But our government has infinite wisdom, as we all know. And in their infinite wisdom, they shut down the program about 10 or 15 years ago. But I think you're right, Angela. You're going to start to see more and more research. And, you know, I don't think that all the Hollywood types making microdosing trendy is going to help the help with the research at all. In fact, I tend to think things like that work against it.
It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, that's for sure. And the information that they're able to acquire from it. I look at stroke as being a medical trauma. So trauma is everywhere, you know, around stroke, because it has disrupted your life incredibly. So trauma isn't just about like somebody holding you up at gunpoint, or you getting in a car crash or a plane crash, or you know, you being abused. That's not what I believe trauma is. I really believe trauma impacts your body and your body deeply. I think trauma has a lot to do with why people are getting sick in the first place, because people don't know how trauma truly impacts the nervous system, how it impacts and stores within the fascia, and how without working it out of your body in some mechanical action, it will stay there and fester and confuse the cellular communication. I don't think that that's really spoke into, and I think a lot of people attach the word trauma to somebody being hurt, like by somebody else. You know what I mean? And they don't really necessarily understand that trauma, and this is my opinion, that trauma really encompasses an entire experience like this. My God, I had a stroke. I lost half of my body. That is traumatic. You know?
I agree with you there that, you know, stroke is traumatic, and anything that you can do to deal with the trauma is going to put you in a better mindset it's going to allow you to concentrate on all aspects of your healing. Particularly, you might be more inclined to do exercises and such. So I'm not saying it's not something that would be good overall in recovery. And one thing, bad joke, I have to say, you've obviously never had anybody hold a gun to your head, and I have. And so, or you would recognize that as trauma.
Well, I do recognize that as trauma. And actually, Ralph, unfortunately, I have had that similar experience.
I had
teasing
something
you.
that
So
could
far.
equate to it as well.
Huh? What, Ryan?
Yes, I had something similar. I was working at Disney World, and a husband and wife were trying to get on a ride, and the child was running through an area that was wet and slick. I was afraid she was going to fall and hurt herself, so I stopped her, and up comes her father, who was exceedingly large and muscular, and almost to a degree, I think, unhealthy wise. And I quite literally feared for my life and dropped to my knees, prayed for forgiveness, gave that little girl every little freebie I had in my pockets, because this man was threatening quite literally to break my neck right then and there.
People. Yeah, anyway, so I shouldn't have brought it up. But yeah, they're all yeah, stroke is definitely trauma. You know, I always say somebody like turn your life upside down, shook it all out. Yeah, so anything that helps you with any kind of positive outlook, mental stability, ability to deal with what's happened to you is going to be a good thing, because we all know that the people sitting in the corner having a pity party aren't doing their exercises. And part of getting better is to, do the things that you need to do to get back that half of your body that got wiped out. So anyway, let's see if I got anything else on this list. There are a couple of other interesting things. Oh yeah, so to get back into for just a sec, the whole thing about that they've done studies. So I tend to go with science. So I like to read things that say studies have shown that patients with major depression have less BDNF. And somebody somewhere along the line noticed that survivors on antidepressants seem to do better or recover faster. It was obviously anecdotal observation at the time, but a lot of times, Dr. Hetler will tell you, science is based on cumulative observation. So when somebody observes something that's interesting, typically science will study it. And once it gets studied, then, by comparative analysis, you can figure things out. So they studied that, and they found out they had a group with and without antidepressants, and they found out that it was true. So what's the next logical thing to do? What would it be? Figure out which antidepressants are most effective well, they found it first. They found a tie between BDNF and the antidepressants. So they studied which ones would help the most, and the drug. Let me see if I can pronounce this right. Sertraline was the most effective. This is you would know it as Zoloft. Now, if you're on an antidepressant and you're concerned about BDNF, you could see if you tolerate Zoloft. When I was doing when I was playing antidepressant bingo for about 6 months after my stroke, they put me on all kinds of different ones. Somebody said, "Oh, Zoloft is best. It's great." And they gave me one pill. I thought I was having another stroke. I wouldn't take another one. I went back to what I was on, and I went back to another doctor and started playing antidepressant bingo again. So as Dr. Hetler mentioned earlier, these SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, are typically what most antidepressants are. There are other types. but I think we're talking about SSRIs here. They increase BDNF in the forebrain and the hippocampus. Now, I need Dr. Hetler to tell us what that means. I understand the forebrain. I'm not sure I know enough about the hippocampus to know why that might be significant.
Let me interrupt. The hippocampus is involved in the formation of new memories.
Well, BDNF would be kind of critical there, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be. The hippocampus is sort of the underside of your temporal lobe, which is on the side. It's on the bottom underside. The hippocampus is involved in formation of new memories. What did the hippocampus say in his retirement speech? Thanks for the memories.
Oh, okay. So is the hippocampus involved in that memory packing that goes on during deep sleep?
Yeah, yes and no. Now, memories are stored during both REM sleep and deep sleep.
Oh,
Different types of memories are stored depending on whether they're motor memories or more cognitive memories. So
where are the motor memories stored, or when? What do you need to store motor memories? Because that's what we're all trying to work on. You know, you do your work all day, your PT all day. You want to have it like sink into your brain at night when you're sleeping.
Well, you do, and I say motor, but the more professional way of describing them are declarative memories. Those are ones you can say, and non-declarative memories. Those are the ones that you do. So the knowledge that you know how to ride a bicycle would be a declarative memory. Your ability to ride a bicycle would be a non-declarative memory.
Very good analogy. Okay, so one more thing on antidepressants, and that is BDNF is great, but you don't want to do anything like that works against you, your observations about your body, or so you wouldn't want to. If you're not depressed, you wouldn't get on an antidepressant just because they help with BDNF production. If you're depressed and you're thinking about it, it's maybe something else that might convince you after a stroke that it's a good thing to do, because it might help with your recovery as well as helping with your depression. And if you can do anything you can do to help you with your depression, get you out of the corner and exercising. So it's a good thing. So you
generally, research suggests that antidepressants will help in stroke recovery during the first year after a stroke. After that, any beneficial effects are minimal.
Oh.
You're better off doing other things, like if it's a motor problem, exercising the muscles involved, because what you really want to do to improve your movement abilities is to increase the size of the motor cortex that controls those muscle groups. And the way to increase their size is to use those muscle groups over and over and over and over every day. So, yes, antidepressants help, but mainly during the first year. What you have to do after that is exercise the muscle that you want to improve. And it's just like anyone, an athlete or something trying to improve, they exercise over and over again. And if you want to improve your ability to use your right arm or your left arm, you have to use it over and over and over again. That will increase its size in your motor cortex, and in so doing will eliminate the spasticity that may have set in.
So I'm seeing our old friend, the homunculus,
Yes.
which is a model of what the body would look like based on the interactivity between the brain and muscle. So you want to get your affected side homunculus back to matching your other side as much as possible.
The
I don't know what.
the homunculus is basically a little person that you can
Right.
basically is the either sensory, there's a sensory homunculus and a motor homunculus. And that's if you were to draw an image of the amount of brain area devoted to a body part, that would be a homunculus. It might be, yes.
Huge hands.
Right. You've got huge hands and a huge face and a huge mouth, because you use your mouth all the time, not only to eat, but to talk and so on. So to increase that homunculus, you use it more and more. And that will increase its size, and you will be better at using it.
So I've been known to I could try and connect dots all the time. It's a good thing because a lot of times I end up connecting dots that should be connected. Sometimes I connect dots that maybe shouldn't be connected. And when you say something, first of all, I didn't come across that in any of my research about this. I only spent 2 hours on it. Mainly because I didn't want to be involved in a conversation where I couldn't contribute to anything or sounded like an idiot. But I didn't run across anything saying the first year. When I hear that first year, I'm starting to think about spontaneous healing that happens in the first 6 months or year, and I'm wondering, wonder if this whole SSRI antidepressant thing, BDNF thing, somehow plays into that spontaneous healing period. I don't know if that's anything that you know anything about, Dr. Hetzer, or if I'm connecting.
I don't specifically, but that would make sense because the antidepressant would improve BDNF in that area of the brain as well as other areas, and that could aid in the spontaneous healing. So it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, well, that's what I do. I've got a lot of common sense or whatever. I'm not trying to brag on myself, but I make connections like that all the time. As soon as you said that, I went, wow, I wonder if that has anything, if it's tied to spontaneous healing or not. And it does make sense. But before I go, you know me, Dr. Hetzer, before I go passing anything on, I like to verify it with, you, neurologist, Stanford University, the Mayo Clinic, 5 or 6 websites saying it. Once I get like what I feel is like more than one person, like a little bit of consensus, I guess would be the word, then I feel comfortable passing it on. Because one thing we don't want to do in these groups and discussions is pass on bad information. It's hard. There's plenty of bad information out there, and most of us exist after our strokes in a lack of information zone. We're hungry for anything that can and will help. So good information is a good thing. Okay, I'm just gonna finish this up real quick. You get the most BDNF through exercise. It was a number one on another one. Another one's here's another list of 5: intermittent fasting, exercise, strength training, high intensity exercise, and even walking works. Sun, sleep. And Dr. Hetzer knows a good bit about sleep. Sleep is apparently very important to producing BDNF. I think it's got, there may be something specific, I don't know, but it seems kind of like it's got to do with the holistic thing, eating right and all that. Let's see. Oh yeah, so not only your GI health, but brain health is enhanced by, I'm going to jump because it ties to this, are enhanced by meditation, mindfulness, breath, and yoga. Hopefully Angelia is listening. Breath and yoga. So some of the things that we've all been dabbling in are good. And I said in the beginning, my conclusion from our talk last Thursday on Roadmap and from doing this research was that, BDNF really comes from a lot of things that we're trying to do in terms of taking like a holistic approach to our recovery. Yeah, it's not only exercises, but it's paying attention to eating right, your gut genome, your brain health, your mental well-being, dealing with trauma. Meditation and mindfulness are both good for trauma, in addition to those microdosing, which may or may not be. It's had some results at the University of Maryland. Okay, and let's see. Oh, Angela, this is a total aside, but she's big on the vagus nerve, and I read something that said serotonin actually travels from the gut to the brain via the vagus nerve. Now, I'm trying to understand how that would work, because a nerve typically doesn't transmit chemicals.
The axon endings release chemicals. And the vagus nerve, vagus is the same root as vagabond, and it basically wanders all over the inside of your body.
Right.
And so you're sending axons out that release neurotransmitters, and you're receiving information from your body, and that causes the release of neurotransmitters. Now,
so travel, yeah, because so I'm going to object to the word travels. So signals travel and cause it to happen. When you use the word travel, you think like blood flow, like it's actually pumping it, and it's not.
There's a message that goes all up and down the axon. It's called an action potential, and when the action potential reaches the axon ending, it causes the release of a neurotransmitter. But actually, serotonin doesn't really get into the brain, the forebrain proper via the vagus nerve. There are serotonin cell bodies lined up and down the brain stem. That'd be the medulla, the pons, and the midbrain. You have serotonin cell bodies, and they send their axons rostrally, that is, towards the forebrain, what you think of as the brain, and they in turn release the serotonin. So serotonin doesn't really get into your brain, the vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve exits from the rostral medulla, the top of the medulla, and then it goes all over the body and gets in.
Are they? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
And so, but serotonin is not a neurotransmitter in the vagus nerve. So I'm not quite sure why he or she told you that.
I think it's speaking into the fact that it is as a result of stimulation, right? As a result of vagal nerve stimulation, these releases increase, is kind of the idea that I get around it. It's not that the vagus nerve itself releases anything other than the stimulation throughout the body, because it wanders, and it wanders throughout from the top of the head all the way down, throughout the entire body. It goes up over your head and down through your neck and wanders down your arms, all through every limb, through the torso, everywhere.
Nope. The vagus nerve just goes in to your viscera, your heart, your intestines, and so on. The vagus nerve is not at all involved in your arms and your legs.
Well, what are the arms and the legs have nerves running off of them? It all starts at the vagus nerve, though, doesn't it, doctor?
No. The nerves to your arms and legs leave your spinal cord.
Okay.
You have 8 cervical nerves that each go to a particular part of your skin. The part of your skin that receives that nerve is called a dermatome. You've got 31 dermatomes on each half of your body, each side of your body. Each dermatome, that's an area of the skin, is innervated by a different spinal nerve. You've got 8 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 coccygeal. You've got 31. Now, to point out how these nerves play a role, there's a role that no one wants to be involved, but if you get shingles, shingles erupts on a patch of skin on one part of the body. And that's a patch of skin that is innervated by a single spinal root. When you first had chickenpox, your body defeats the chickenpox, but the virus lives in a group of cell bodies along the spinal cord. As you age, or if you are stressed severely, sometimes the virus becomes more active in that collection of cell bodies and emerges and follows the nerve out to where it innervates the skin, and then it comes out from the nerve and inflames that skin area. And that's when you get shingles. And the shingles involves a single dermatome on one side of the body. And that dermatome that's affected is the part that's innervated by that single spinal nerve.
That's so fascinating. Thank you for clarifying that. I love that you explained that too, because I know for myself and my journey, I have suffered with things like psoriasis and eczema. And that has been something that I've been dealing with throughout my entire life. And I noticed that it only presents on one side or the other. And when I'm super stressed, it'll present on both sides in the exact same spot. It's a little bizarre how it winds up releasing out of the body. And I know it's all connected to stress, whether it be the stress of the food that I'm just choosing to put into my body, or stress of the environment that I have that I'm living in, raising teenagers. It's always fun.
That could be stressful, yes.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
no, I just thought that there was a connection there, just like with the shingles. It's like it presents the same way in a way, It's just kind of really fascinating to me how to connect those dots. That's all.
I was going to say, it's amazing what 8 years of education and 43 years of teaching what kind of knowledge you end up with.
It sure is.
Well, and that's one reason why we always like to have Dr. Hetler here, because I'm not a neuroscientist. Okay, what do I got left here? Not much. So interesting. Low BDNF causes drinking alcohol problems. Also can be contributing. They think it's a contributing factor to Alzheimer's and dementia. And aging lowers BDNF. I saw that a couple places. Of course, Alzheimer's and dementia are both typically, not always, but typically part of the aging process.
Now,
I don't know.
Alzheimer's is one type of dementia. Alzheimer's disease is one form of dementia.
Right.
There are other forms, like there's Lewy body dementia. That's a type Turner has. And then there's frontal temporal dementia. I think that's the type Bruce Willis has. So there are other types of dementia besides Alzheimer's. But Alzheimer's, which was named after Dr. Alzheimer, the first patient he had in which he described this disease, I think he published a paper in like 1909 or something like that. And the files of that patient have been discovered. It was in Germany, and we now have a picture of her and his original notes on her. But so this report on that one patient, and I think it was in 1909, something like that, led to the term Alzheimer's disease. Is named after him, and it was his description of that particular patient.
Yeah, there's also, my mom had vascular dementia from high blood pressure, I assume, because she had uncontrolled blood pressure, and that's what vascular means. So it's interesting.
What are the effects of each of all the different types? I mean, do they present out differently with different symptoms, I'm assuming?
I'm not an expert. I can't answer that.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, there are some differences, but I frankly do not know the differences. You can sometimes you can't tell what type it is until you do an autopsy after the person is deceased.
Oh, wow.
Alzheimer's disease is determined by one intracellular and one extracellular thing. Extracellular, there are groups of amyloid beta proteins. Intracellularly, that is inside the cell, you have an excess of tau protein. So inside the neuron, normally you have fibers running all up and down the inside of an axon that look like a bunch of uncooked spaghetti noodles. It's go all up and down the length of the axon. In Alzheimer's disease, there is a tau protein that makes up a part of the membrane of these axons. And in Alzheimer's disease, that tau protein becomes hyperphosphorylated. That is, too many phosphorus groups get attached to it, and that causes what originally looked like, again, uncooked spaghetti noodles to look like cooked spaghetti noodles, just a big clumps and masses inside the axon, so the neuron can't fire. Extracellularly, you get these beta amyloid plaques, just like it's like rubber cement inside the brain. You got these little clumps of like rubber cement, and there are these amyloid beta plaques. And you don't see these two things until the person's deceased, and you slice up their brain and you go, okay, well, that's what it is.
Well,
Wow.
they actually are, yeah, Alzheimer's, typically they would say they couldn't diagnose it at all without an autopsy, looking at the brain. But I see stuff and I don't know, it seems like they're making progress on diagnosing it while people are still alive. I don't know how effective it is, but you start to see stuff about somebody having Alzheimer's while they're still alive. So they treat people for Alzheimer's, and they say something like, I don't know, astronomical amount of my generation is going to have it in the next 10, 20 years, which is also Dr. Hetler's generation, and Marilyn's, and Winnie's, and Billy's, and Carly's. Let's not forget Carly. So it's interesting. So that's pretty much it. I saw one reference that said THC, or from cannabis, increases BDNF, but I'm not so sure about that because I only saw one reference to it and it didn't clarify it. So maybe I shouldn't even mention that. And what else? The only other thing I had was something I chose not to talk about. That's ketamines, which is back to the keto diet and everything. Some people take them. Apparently Stephen King was addicted to them. They're addictive and dangerous. And
They're addictive?
What?
Ketones are addictive?
Ketamines.
Ketamines.
Mines. Dr. Hetler might know something about this, but I read twice that they changed the brain's ability to self-control or self-regulate, which is what makes them addictive. Maybe that's how all works.
Are you talking about ketamine? Ketamine? Ketamine?
Yeah, ketamines.
Okay, well, ketamine is a derivative of phencyclidine, PCP. It's a dissociative anesthetic, and ketamine was the main anesthetic used during the Vietnam War. Now, ketamine is currently being used in the treatment of depression. But it's basically, it was developed as an anesthetic, and it's actually sometimes successfully used as an anesthetic in children, because when children come out of the ketamine-induced anesthesia, they don't have what are called emergence reactions, which adults would have. Adults would have this with PCP or phencyclidine-induced anesthesia also. That is, the PCP or the ketamine is called a dissociative anesthetic because it seems to dissociate the person from their environment. And under the influence of the anesthetic, you can do an operation and they seem quite calm. When PCP was first tested in monkeys, the monkeys seemed very serene, and so they called it Cernil. That was the brand name. However, when people come out of the anesthesia, that is adults, they become unmanageable and violent. That does not happen in children.
Interesting. Well, it's like anything, you do some research and you find out a whole lot. And one of the things that you find out when you do a lot of research is that we still don't know the way a lot of things work.
That is true.
And that's okay. So you find out what you don't know in addition to what there is to know. But that leaves plenty of room for scientists to discover all these things. It's pretty amazing, if I'm thinking about myself at 10 or 15 years old, I could not imagine the world that we live in now in terms of technology and medicine and all the advances that we made. Hopefully we'll continue to be here in order to continue to make them. We don't seem to be very good at treating our planet very well. But that's a subject for another discussion.
Ralph, I have to leave now. I've got an appointment, so I'm going to thank you for an interesting session, and I will hopefully see you in the future.
Okay, thanks for coming. We always appreciate your input.
My pleasure. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.